Hey everybody, happy Friday. Time for another episode of Unicorn TV, which I'm annoyed that I can see this. All right, so on this episode, I am talking about how to tell stories that actually work. Okay, so I don't know about you, but I think that if you've been in any kind of online marketing space for any kind of amount of time, you've probably heard about storytelling. But I mean, can you relate to can you relate to this? Like the feeling of just sitting there in front of the screen, not knowing what to do with that information. Like just sitting there at the blank screen. What do I do? Okay, I know I'm supposed to tell a story, but what the hell does that mean? So I've been there before. And I wanted to just shed some light on things you should consider with telling your stories so that you can make stories that actually get noticed by your audience, right? So they actually think, oh, this is relatable, or they comment, or they like, or they reply, okay? And then that starts a conversation and a connection, and eventually could lead to them working with you, a deeper relationship, etc. So stories are extremely important in your marketing, but just saying that, like I said, it's like, what does that mean? So I want to shed some light on things to consider for you so you can write better stories that actually do what you intend. Okay. So I have 4 little steps here that I'm going to go through. The first step is really identifying why you're sharing what you're sharing. So for me, that means, why am I sharing this broadcast, for example? Well, I'm sharing it because I know that telling stories is important, but I know that people have issues with it, and I want to help alleviate that pain. So it's important for you to know why you're sharing what you're sharing. This relates to some of the future points I'm going to talk about in a really big way, but why is it worth you telling this story? Hi, Nina. Thanks for coming on. You're just now joining. So I just started talking about telling stories in your writing. And the first step is to identify why you're sharing what you're sharing. Like what's your audience supposed to get out of it? And that helps you. Great, Nina. Well, you're going to see the whole thing now. So that really helps you stay focused on the key points and not ramble and not tell unnecessary info, etc. So that's the first step. The second step is to determine what the hook is. And what the hook is going to be what is the most relatable thing that somebody can hook into. And usually that's something in the middle of the story, not the beginning, when we would tell a lot of background info. And that's fine, because you can tell that stuff later. It's usually not interesting, and you want to hook somebody's interest when you start the story. So that's why I started to talk about, how do you feel about, like in the beginning of this broadcast, when you are told you need to tell stories, but then you are staring at a blank page and you have no idea what the fuck to do. Shouldn't have said that, but you have no idea how to actually tell a story, right? So that was my hook. Like, that is a situation that people feel. And it's way more interesting than me saying, well, I was trying to figure out like what I would broadcast about today, and I made a list of ideas, and then I landed on telling you guys about how to tell stories. So, that I'm going to lose you immediately. So you need to hook people in with an interesting part that is relatable, that's an experience that people can relate to. And usually that is not the beginning of the story. That might be something in the middle, but not always. So you just want it to be interesting, because frankly, a lot of people are just boring lately. Or if you're not getting a response, you might just be being boring. And that's not a knock on you or anything, but it's just a fact. That could be an issue that you're having. So that being said, that's step 2, is get the hook. What can hook people in that's relatable? Step number 3 then is to fill in the details as needed. So this might be involving some background info. It might not. I challenge you to be minimal with background info. So guess what? You might not need to say that much of the background info. And I find that in my earlier writing, or even still before I edit my writing, I have said way too much background info that people don't give a hoot about. So stop pretending like people care about that stuff. Be honest about what is the bare minimum background info that people need to understand this story. And that's it. They don't need to know anything else. So keep it to that. Number 4, tie it back. So tie it back to your why. So you develop the story by, first of all, you define why you're sharing what you're sharing. That's just internally for you as you go to write it or speak it if you're on a live. Then you determine what your hook is. So that is something to hook somebody in that they can relate to. And usually it's not, sometimes it could be something that happened at the beginning, like a incident. Sometimes it's something in the middle, right? So in the beginning of figuring out what I was going to say for this, it was boring stuff. So I just talked about the middle, which is thinking about that situation somebody's in where they look at a blank page. So number 2 was to get the hook, start your story with the hook. Number 3 is then you fill in the details as needed. So fill in any background info or just be more clear about and upfront about the point you're trying to make. You know, so it would look like this. Have you ever been staring at a blank page, trying to write a damn story for your business, for a piece of copy, and you have no idea what to say? I've been there too. The reason I'm sharing this with you today is so that I can help alleviate that pain. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? So I didn't go into all the background info about, I made a list of topics and this one sounded the best. I just said, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I've been there too. Let's resolve it. Okay. So that's that, filling in the details as needed. That's critical. Underline that. Fill in the details as needed only. And then lastly, but not least, is 4, tie back to why. Make sure that the rest of the story, the other parts of it, tie back to why you're sharing what you're sharing. And if it feels like it doesn't tie back, then it might be a useless piece of background info, or it might just be a non-relevant piece of info. So cut it out. So Nina, if you're on still live, give me a holler on if that helped you or if you have any questions. And then if I don't hear from you within a few minutes, we will wrap for the day. But super quick broadcast. Again, get out there, tell stories, but do the groundwork first. Be clear on why you're sharing the story. What do you want the person to get out of it? 2, hook them in with the relatable point. And then 3, fill in the details after that. And then 4, tie it back to why. Make sure everything ties back to that reason, why you're doing what you're doing, why you're telling the story. So if it's not, then it's probably something that you can cut out. Cool. Well, thanks, Nina. Definitely. Okay. You have issues with sharing stories. And then you said, yes, it helped. Definitely think I need. I'm going to assume you were going to say that you needed this. So I love that. So go have, need to do that. Let go of the background. Yeah. Honestly, you're going to lose people if you get too far into the background. Okay. You're going to lose people because you know those details, but they don't, and they might not even need to know them. Okay. So just ask yourself, does somebody really need to know this piece of information to get the main point I'm trying to get across? Okay. And be honest about it. And in the beginning, a lot of the times it's probably going to be, no, they don't need to know it. But as you get better at this, you will find that it becomes less of a thing. Like you just kind of naturally know what to include and what not to include. So thank you, Nina. If you're watching this on the replay, feel free to ask any questions below. And I appreciate you for being on or watching the replay. And I hope that this helps you in your storytelling. Now go tell a story and have a good Friday. All right. Bye.